In honor of World Wildlife Conservation Day, I'm here talking to Michelle Dangs, who has an incredible nonprofit that is also about conservation and saving wildlife. Michelle, talk a bit about your background before we get into the organization and your mission.
Sure. So happy to be here. Thank you. Well, a few years ago, I left San Diego for a bit, took a contract job in Malawi. It's one of Africa's tiniest and poorest countries, where I actually was working in wildlife conservation. So I served as a nonprofit's international communications manager and spent the year literally living in the wild, going out on rescue missions with the wildlife veterinarian, meeting volunteers and working with the rehab team at the wildlife sanctuary where I was living in Malawi. And it was just one of the most incredible experiences of my entire life. And I came back and knew that I wanted to continue supporting their work and what they were doing, and really open my eyes to the whole world of, wildlife conservation and the challenges, particularly that organizations in those developing countries are facing. And I wanted to kind of come back to the US and create something that could help support and sustain the work that they're doing there. What happens sometimes is at some of the national parks in the country, some of the park rangers will call out. They'll call a hotline, so to speak, in the country there where that nonprofit may be working. In this case, it might be the veterinarian that's working with our organization. She gets a emergency call saying, "Hey, we've spotted this elephant. He has a snare wire wrapped around his leg. It's causing him a wound. We don't know how deep the cut is getting, but we want to be able to dart the animal, treat the wound and get him back going on his way with some antibiotics or whatever that might be." So for emergency wildlife rescue, what we wanted to do was really kind of focus on that portion of wildlife conservation, and particularly starting in the country of Malawi, where funds are low. It's very difficult to get medicine, medical supplies. A lot of those things have to be brought in from other countries like South Africa. So example, our wildlife veterinarian would then have to fly to South Africa, get those medications, drugs, supplies, and then bring them back on an airplane to Malawi in order to service, these wildlife emergency calls that are happening. So we thought with emergency wildlife rescue, let's kind of really focus on that one area that is a challenge to fund, to get resources for, and supply the need, or excuse me, give them the resources that they need in order to provide medical services for those wildlife parks and nature preserves that they get where those animals are in the most need, I should say. So we have nonprofit partners. So we have one located in Malawi, and we're also working with the second one in South Africa. So within those networks, those organizations would be getting those calls, and we will help support them by funding those operations and those rescue missions when needed. Well, so they're getting an intake of orphaned wildlife per se, that someone's like, "Hey, I just found this baby vervet monkey. What do I do with it?" And then they bring it into the wildlife sanctuary. And then they're providing the medication, the 24-hour care, that sort of thing. So I would say, on average per year, the number of animals, rescued and or brought in or saved at any given time is roughly, 200 plus. And you're not necessarily talking about all, wild, large game, right? So you're not necessarily talking about, 200 elephants a year. It really can vary between, pangolins are actually one of the biggest trafficked animals, in addition to obviously ivory for the elephant's tusk and hippo as well. Rhino horn, of course, those big things that you hear about. One of the really amazing experiences I got to have when I was in Malawi was our wildlife veterinarian at the time got a call for one of the wildlife reserves. They had found a zebra that they were tracking that had a snare wire wound. And for those who don't know, snare wires are these really awful metal wire traps that poachers and sometimes people outside in the communities maybe thinking that they're going to trap, say, an antelope or something for food for sustainability, they end up actually causing more harm, and they end up capturing other animals that are not intended for those traps. So an elephant, a lion, a hyena, animals that they're not intending to harm, but unfortunately it's very common, and they do, harm other animals and endangered species like elephants. But on this particular call, just being out in the field with the wildlife veterinarian to see how amazing she works in terms of, tracking, and you got to figure you're trying to eye this zebra out of a herd, and, it's like, okay, I spotted, the zebra, and then darting that zebra, but on the move. So, from a pickup truck, and I'm in the back taking photos and video, and she darts the zebra. Of course, the zebra takes off. So now on foot, we have to go and run and track down the zebra that's, running around in the bush, and finally get to the zebra. And, it was incredible just how meticulous the work is in terms of the medication for sedating the animal, getting the animal, and also they take that time too to do some other things for research. They can take blood tests, they can take that opportunity for other things that aren't just about, saving or rescuing that particular animal as well, which is really cool. But to be able to assist in person, on this, zebra, rescue was absolutely incredible and amazing. Get the snare wire off, she treats the wounds, and, they do some other tests, blood tests and skin tests, just make sure that the health, the zebra's in good health, give the antibiotics, and then they have to reverse the sedation. So, and all of that is just this like magical timing that these wildlife veterinarians that do this work are just so amazing to me. The work that they do and the experience that they have, because, it is just so specific, and like I said, just incredible. The work that they do is absolutely incredible. And to witness it firsthand and to be able to be there to assist was actually just one of the highlights of my time there in over a year. And just again, sort of really reaffirmed and reiterated why I wanted to come back and help them raise the money to continue to be able to do that work. It was a really important mission for us that day, and just something that was so impactful. And to see that it was actually making a difference, and for you to be able to save this animal in real time and in real life, instead of watching it on TV, is just very powerful, and something I'll never forget, and something that I wanted to continue to help support. What we're trying to accomplish and help fund is not only the on-call emergency rescue support, but also the sanctuary support needed. They have something called an orphan season. So, it's kind of like our springtime here for, animals. And so they get a lot of abandoned baby animals that they need brought in, and they just need that 24-hour care. And again, it really kind of goes back to helping to support and fund the medications needed for their rehabilitation, for them eventually to go back out into the wild. So that's one portion of it. The emergency on-call, services is another portion of it. And then eventually also we'd like to get in more into the anti-poaching, where we're supporting those rangers in those national parks as well, just with the resources that they need. So maybe that's gear, maybe that's something like, I want to kind of move into technology as well. So drones that are used to monitor parks, and or say that the national park doesn't have a helicopter right at their disposal to go and track down this injured elephant.
I was really shocked to read that 41,000 species are currently threatened with extinction.
When something is off balance, it stops them, especially things like deforestation, right? So if everything is completely out of whack, essentially, so you've got deforestation on top of wildlife that are losing their habitat. So now they're shifting, but heavy rains and rivers, and then all of a sudden they overflow, because now your habitat and the ecosystem itself is completely out of balance between not only the wildlife, but then the human causes of what's occurring in those habitat areas. So it really truly is, I mean, there all the plants and the animals serve, you know, a very specific purpose to keep all of those things in balance. And when they are not, things like the floods and things like that, are occurring more often, really have obviously a major effect on humans and of course wildlife as well too. And our big goal would probably be to raise at least $50,000. That $50,000 would go to help fund and support a wildlife veterinarian that is on call in country, in addition to, say, the vehicle needed to drive to those national parks, and then all of the medical supplies and drugs and medications that are needed for that operation. So that's typically about a year's worth of support for a full-time wildlife veterinarian to work in country and basically be their on-call wildlife veterinarian, if you will. So hoping to launch in 2025 are some in-person volunteer opportunities within the country and the organizations that we'll be partnering with. So it's really great opportunities for not only wildlife lovers, but veterinarian students who want to get more hands-on experience. So our goal is to help facilitate that partnership and pairing for those students who might want to learn and do some in-field work and on hands with some of the wildlife and rescue missions that will be taking place as well in Malawi. So that's something really cool. If anyone is interested in getting involved, please feel free to visit our website at emergencywildliferescue.org. Sign up for our newsletter so you get information on our upcoming events and fundraisers, and then find out and follow up on all the impact that we're making in Malawi and South Africa, and follow us along on our journey.